News.com live on Facebook. Day 4 of Packers training camp in the books. Practice has been over for a little while. We've talked to the guys in the locker room. I've attended to my daily duties with the website, and now I thought I'd come jump on here and talk to you fine folks. See what questions you may have after following along online, which I know many of you do. Got great engagement today on Twitter, a lot of fun. Steve, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Christopher, Washington, D.C. I hope the nation's capital is surviving in this beautiful summer day. Hey, Mike, how are you? I guess the headline today, obviously, is Montravius Adams and his injury. You'll be able to read about all of that at PackersNews.com. I think Tom Silverstein has a short piece up on it already. Robert Anderson, the noted foot surgeon, has already looked at him once. Apparently we'll be looking at him again when he moves into the area. As Tom pointed out in the video that we did for the site, they don't have a ton of depth at that position, and he was kind of well regarded by his teammates. The veteran teammates really liked what they saw early on in the spring. Now, of course, that's pre-pads, but McCarthy's saying this morning that it'll be a few weeks until they get Adams back into the fold, and you gotta think that's a lot of precious time to miss each and every day. Once they go into pads, so much work gets done in these install practices. Today was another nearly 3-hour one, and well, it wasn't 3 hours. It was almost as long as Saturdays. And it's just invaluable time that he's going to miss. So you hate to see that for a young guy. Josh Jones, David, once again, Josh Jones was all over the field, making plays left and right. There is no denying that this guy looks like the real deal. Now, it always kind of happens in steps throughout the offseason, whether it's after they get drafted, coming into rookie camp, going into OTAs, to mini camp, then the pads come on, and you start seeing what guys are really all about, and then the intensity kicks up another notch when preseason game starts, and then the kind of the pace of the game and the intensity kicks up even more in regular season, and then even further in the playoffs if they are participating. But so far, every step of the way, Josh Jones has kind of been the same player. Like we even saw when the pads weren't on back in the spring that he was hitting guys when he wasn't supposed to. He's a hitter. He's a guy who's going to be violent, and he's going to knock people out, and he's going to make plays. He had a blitz today off the weak side. Brett Hundley would have been just absolutely decimated if he hadn't been wearing a red jersey. And that's something, that was something I've always wanted to ask Tom Capers about, and I may do that later this week. The timing of the blitzes is always kind of, it's a tricky thing because you don't want to give too much away to the quarterback prior to the snap of the ball, but you want to get up close enough so that you can get to the quarterback before he releases the ball, especially in this day and age when everyone's using these quick 3-step drops and get it out of your hand. And Jones had it so perfectly timed today. And that's really kind of, you got to think that's something that's innate in some guys. And it's a clear sign that Hundley needs to change up his snap count maybe. How are Cobb and Nelson looking? Very good, solid, although Nelson had a bit of a rough, I don't want to say rough day, but he had a few plays where Rodgers kind of hung one up high, and he couldn't go up and get it, and it would have been an interception if Kevin King could have held on to it. And then there was another where he was cutting over the middle, and Rodgers zipped one in there, and he just flat dropped it. And you could see afterwards he was really frustrated. But for the most part, he looks like Jordy Nelson. I think, when the lights go on, he'll be ready. He is a consummate pro, a veteran's vet, and a guy who really knows what he's doing. And you're going to have up and down days in training camp. There's no doubt about that. But for the most part, he looks fine, and as does Randall Cobb. Cobb chomping at the bit to be a punt returner. At one point today, they were lining up to do protection drills, which they usually will put the jugs machine back there and launch punts for the guys, the returners, to practice. And for whatever reason, I think one of the equipment guys forgot to put the jugs machine there, and Cobb was yelling, "Jugs, jugs!" Like he wanted the machine, he wanted to get working. And right now he's rolling #1 at punt returner. I think that's not a surprise after Trevor Davis's rough day yesterday. Anyone do something bad enough to get banished to Siberia? Not today. Louis got the Raji question in. Thanks, buddy. Devon House. Brennan, Devon House looks good. Looks very good. He looks like top line NFL corner. Now, I've been on record saying that I think he's unquestionably their opening day starter. The question is who starts opposite of him. And right now, the last 3 days, we've seen Kevin King out there. And I know Mike McCarthy told us a couple days ago not to read too much into that, well, who's running where and with which group, etc. But I tell you what, after the first day of having Ladarius Gunter out there on the perimeter, and now ever since then you've seen nothing but King with the ones, it's pretty clear where they're heading with this. What is Ricky Jean-Francois' role going to be? Jeremy, I would tend to think he'll be your first and second down guy. He'll be there as a run plugger. He doesn't offer a whole lot when it comes to pass rush, at least not in the tape that he's put out in the NFL so far. He had a great day today. He was really disruptive. And it was much better actually than Saturday when the starting offensive line was just blowing open holes in the run game. He was much more disruptive today. Turvac kind of definitely gave him some props in that regard. And then after practice, he and Martellus Bennett, I did notice at this play they were talking about, it was a 3rd and 1, and Bennett really sold out to block Ricky Jean-Francois on the end, so much so that he ended up on the ground. And they were laughing afterwards, and Ricky Jean-Francois was like, they're both, old-time vets. And Francois was saying, like, I couldn't believe how you sold out for that play on 3rd and 1 in a practice. Like, sometimes, like, guys are going to kind of, like, take it a little easy, a little veteran day. But, Bennett was all in. He wanted to get that 3rd and 1 blocked. Mike McCarthy got mad today, I hear. Not as bad. He got mad on Saturday. Today, he was yelling a little bit, but it was not Saturday. He lost his lid. I think it was a kind of culmination of, they were doing some running drills, like I was talking about, and then they did some running plays from scrimmage. And each and every time, the starting offensive line was just kind of manhandling the starting defensive line. And then it kind of culminated when, in the 2-minute drill, Ripkowski caught a fullback screen that went for 20-plus yards, and every single O-lineman, it was actually beautiful from the offensive standpoint, every single offensive lineman had a guy and just kind of moved him out. It was great spacing, and Ripkowski could basically had an alley just to run straight down the sideline. And after that play, Mike McCarthy lost it at his defense, saying, get off a team block, like, get off the field, etc. He was not pleased. And I think that kind of carried over to today when at the beginning of practice, right after stretch, before they got into their regular work, Mike Daniels called the entire defense over and gave him a little pep talk and said, okay, let's go. I think Mike definitely got some, rang a bell maybe a little bit for the defense. Somebody asked about Trevor Davis. I think he had a nice bounce back practice today. He had a poor practice on Saturday, including it ended in a bad stinger that left him on the ground for a while. I thought he bounced back nicely today. He was your second guy up in punt return, had a nice catch along the left sideline towards the end of team. That's what you want. That's what you want to see, a guy who has a really rough practice to, is able to shake it off, not let it affect him going forward, and come back and have a good day of practice, which I think he did today. Martinez and Ryan, will they be edged out by safeties in the new look defense? I tell you what, it really depends on how much, nickel and dime they end up playing. But right now, I'm leaning towards this. I don't know how they're going to be edged out, but I think it's going to be very matchup dependent on what kind of team they're playing, what kind of offense they're facing. Because I tell you what, if they play teams that like spread the ball out and want to look at these, 3-4 wide receiver sets, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more Jones and Burnett than you are Martinez and Ryan. I don't think there's any doubt there. How's the first team defense looking as a whole? They look good today. I think they had a much better practice today than they did Saturday. Still hard to tell because the reps are so limited and they're mixing and matching guys so much. I mean, literally on every single play today, Turkovac was mixing combinations along the defensive line. And Joe Wade Jr. is constantly churning guys in the secondary or at the cornerback spot. So, it's hard to say. We get to the family now, we get to the preseason game, we get kind of a better idea. How's Jordan Tripp looked? Do you think his special teams ability will give him a roster spot? I know we're writing about it for tomorrow's paper / tonight's website, so make sure you check that out. I tend to think, yeah. I think, they brought him in late last year, and he did help them on special teams. And they've actually given him some snaps with the first string defense. And now it's been like one or two. But I think they really want to find out what they have there. And I definitely think he has become or is becoming kind of a stalwart on special teams. And as you guys know, that's the way you're going to make a roster when you're not one of those frontline guys. Any undrafted first or second year players looking good? Justin Vogel. And I know people don't want to talk about the punter, but gosh, he had another great day today. It has been a long time since the Packers had a bona fide NFL punter. I mean, a guy who, maybe not booms it every time, but has, over 4 seconds of hang time and over 40 yards nearly every kick. He had 1-5-something today. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And it's just been so long since they had that in Green Bay. It's kind of striking every time you see it. Gary Kendricks had another very nice practice today. Tom Silverstein wrote about him for us overnight. He was in the paper this morning at PackersNews.com. He followed up what was a great practice on Saturday with another good one today. I think they're going to be able to find lots of different ways to use him. What do you think about the running backs? Aaron Jones had great bursts today. And both Jones and Williams have shown something in pass protection, which is, something I asked immediately after they were drafted on day 3, draft weekend. First thing I asked Elliott Wolf was, can these guys protect Rodgers? And at the time, Elliott said, well, we're going to find out. And so far, they have looked up to the challenge, most definitely. Now, a big part of that is only getting 1 or 2 looks. They're not getting a ton of work. Some of it is drill work. Some of it is team stuff. But, as their workload increases in that regard, we'll see how they handle it. But right now, both of them are kind of acquitting themselves well, as is Devontae Mays. I've been kind of pleasantly surprised by how well they're picking it up. Do you see them keeping 2 fullbacks on the 53? That's a great question. Carriage is definitely making a push for it. It's early in camp. Now, it's early. It's very early. But his physicality stands out. He's a help on special teams. Yeah, I don't know. I would long-term, looking at kind of the numbers elsewhere, I would probably guess no, but you never know, man. If he keeps it up, it's a possibility. Geronimo Allison, he had a quiet day today, but he looks good. He's doing a lot of work on special teams, which is good. You expect that, the guy's going to have to pitch in still in his second year. But it was kind of quiet from him today. How are the outside linebackers looking? I'm glad you asked that because it's something I kind of took notice of when they were doing pass under pressure and then went into teamwork. It's so hard to get a really good kind of read or evaluation on some of these guys at outside linebacker because the reps are so limited, and then when they do get reps where they actually get to rush the passer, the guys are getting the ball out of their hands so fast, like it's a 3-step drop and the ball is out into the flat usually, that these guys don't really have an opportunity to kind of show anything. Fackrell did have one really nice rep today where he would have been in the backfield and gotten a sack if the quarterback wasn't wearing a red jersey. But for the most part, that's really the only one I saw where he had the opportunity because the quarterback had to hold on to the ball rather than, okay, I rush and the ball's out of the hand and because it's only 2nd and 4, they don't need to go downfield. That's the other thing. The offense isn't really pushing the ball downfield much at all, except in team. Rodgers did a little bit today. But, I think we'll get a better sense of that as camp goes on and they do more work downfield. They get into the preseason games. We'll get a better idea. More screens and draws this year? I don't know. I don't know necessarily more. They've been calling them in practice every once in a while, like you'd expect. They're definitely working on them, but I don't know if there'll be more. Logo the next Marquette King? Well, I don't know about that. Guards looking okay. The front line guards looking great. Evans and Taylor. Taylor had an excellent day, both in teamwork and in drill work. He was very stout and very good. Past that, it's hard to say. Like I said, they're mixing and matching so much. And the drill work, Kofi Amichia got his lunch handed to him today by Christian Ringo. Punting okay? Keith, the punting's great. I just talked about it a little bit. Vogel is the real deal. Are we done seeing Cobb in the backfield? Travis, I don't think done completely, but I think, they've got this large stable of backs now that they got to find out what they have. So you probably won't see Cobb back there for a while. Do you think Randall moves back to safety if he struggles this year? I doubt it. They've got a deep safety group with, you're looking at Bryce, his emergence, the addition of Jones, and they like Marwin Evans a whole heck of a lot. And then, of course, there's Burnett and Haha. I don't really think moving him to safety is in the cards. Yancey and Dupree both had kind of a quiet day today. They're coming along. They're working on special teams. And that's what they need to do to get on this roster. Josh Jones staying consistent? Yes, consistently physical. Absolutely. Bryce is hard-hitting. He is as well. I tell you what, the combination of Bryce and Jones on this defense, and it was funny, Saturday when the pads came on and the hitting started, there was a guy in personnel who kind of walked by me, and we were looking at each other, and I said, Bryce and Jones, huh? And he just kind of nodded and smiled and kept walking. But I tell you what, that's a combination that could really bring some physicality to this defense that has been lacking in years past. Do you say our defense is top 5 or top 10? Let's slow down. It's day 4. Let's just relax. Let's, play a preseason game first. Sarah, Clay Matthews, I'm glad you asked because Clay doesn't do a whole lot. They don't give him tons of reps. Obviously, a big part of that is trying to keep him healthy. He looks good. He's said that he's completely healthy and healed from the shoulder issue, the hamstring issue from last year. He looks good when the few reps he gets, but they're obviously trying to keep him fresh. It's what they did last year. Obviously, that didn't end up helping and working out, but they're trying to stave off injuries, and both he and Nick Perry get few reps because of it. Do you worry about the long snapper holder change for Crosby? Not so far. It's been pretty good. Vogel held for 3 years in college, so he knows the drill. He knows the gig. And so far of all the days we've been here, what is it? I think we've only seen Crosby kick once, and he hit them all except for one, which hit the upright. But it doesn't seem to be any problems there. And as you guys probably know, you've followed the team long enough, the change of holders is something that can play havoc quite readily, as Crosby has gone through a couple times. How's Aaron Rodgers looking? Like Aaron Rodgers. Brett Hundley may leave next season. Does he look hungry? How's his workouts? Alan, Hundley looks good. The problem Hundley's having right now is he doesn't get all of his reps are obviously with second line guys, so he's working in front of a overmatched offensive line, and he's throwing to guys sometimes who don't know where they're supposed to be. Not all the time, Obviously, these guys are professionals; they know the playbook, etc. But he knows the offense, I think, a little bit better than probably most of the people he's playing with. So he's having to hold the ball a lot, guys. And then when he's throwing late. But it's mostly because, there's not a lot of in sync action going on. Whereas if you got to play with the ones, I think, which he most likely will in the preseason, I think you'd see a little more polish. Right now, I think if you're a fan coming to practice and you're just watching him and you're thinking, man, it's a lot of incompletions and a lot of low kind of balls and a lot of, what would have been sacks. I think a lot of that is due to, kind of mixing and matching of pieces that he's being forced to play with. Quentin Rollins had another. Hundley's problem is that Joe Callahan is the GOAT. John, I'll tell you what, Callahan has looked good. He's looked solid. Quentin Rollins, Brendan, as I'm sure you read about or heard about on Saturday, had a diving interception in the end zone covering Randall Cobb, an interception of Aaron Rodgers. He's had a solid camp so far. They keep kind of mixing and matching Demarius Randall and Rollins at the slot. But he's been good. He's had a solid start to camp. Ladarius Gunter thoughts. A couple of Ladarius Gunter questions. He's battling. He had a rough start to camp. There's no doubt about that. I think the last 2 days he's gotten back to kind of his game of pressing guys at the line, and that's what helps when you have pads on. You're able to start doing that really. But he's battling. He's got to battle. They're putting him on lots of special teams, so that bodes well for his chances. But he's in for a fight. There's no doubt. Kevin King as good as advertised? It's hard to say. He hasn't had to do too much in regards to. I haven't seen him thrown at a whole lot, except for one time today. Rodgers went to Nelson in an out route, kind of overthrew it, and King should have had an interception, but he couldn't bring it down. Sounds like I hear Gunter gets at least one bad burn a day. Hey, man, they all do. House had a bad one today. That's camp, man. Especially in one-on-one situations where they're doing kind of half lines or like drill stuff, like pattern reading drills for the secondary, or even just one-on-ones. Everybody's going to get burned at least once. It happens. Do I think Sam Shields will play football again? No, I don't. Do we have a chance at beating the Raiders? Yes, they do. How's Dean Lowry? Good, solid. He talked in the locker room today about wanting to be a little more consistent in his play, which I thought was a smart thing to say. Looking back at his tape from last year, you saw the ups and downs, which he readily kind of recognized today with us. And, he's talking about wanting to be a little bit more consistent. And I think if the Packers can get that, obviously it's only going to help. House is a backup? Not on this team, Gary. He's your number one starter. Talk about Cap yet? No, Donnie. Thank you. Thank you. Who is the best backup on the offensive line now? Probably Spriggs. I mean, he had a solid day today, so we'll see. Running backs, fullbacks looking good? Yeah, there's a lot of them. The young running backs have really kind of surprised me. They have looked very good. Aaron Jones has really bounced back from day one when he had that horrible fumble without even being touched. But the backs have really kind of intrigued me. A lot of really nice work out of the backfield in the passing game, which has been, a surprise. Especially from Jamal Williams had a beautiful catch up the left sideline today that I had to kind of do a double take. It hasn't kind of been his MO, as in the scouting reports I've read or the tape I've watched. But it was a gorgeous catch. So, slowly but surely we're getting a little better idea of what these guys are about. If you base it off the first couple days, how will I rank the corners? I won't rank the corners for that very reason, because it's just the first couple days. I thought Spriggs was a tackle-only kind of guy. He is a tackle-only kind of guy, unless you meant interior only. Can we trade Joe Thomas for Joe Thomas? No. Help mitigate, yes. How's the O-line? Alex, the first starting offensive line has been incredible. They have picked up, they haven't kind of missed a beat, which is kind of insane when you think about the fact that they lost Sitton and Lang 1-2 in less than a calendar year. They look really good. Which of the running backs has the most ability to take it to the house on any given play? I would think I would split that between Mays and Jones, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones showed real burst around the corner on one running play today that I think, James Starks last year would have absolutely been tackled for a loss in the backfield, whereas Jones made it into a 12-yard gain. But that said, Devontae Mays is the fastest guy if you look at the 40s, and he showed that on day one when he just pulled away from a safety who thought he had the angle. It looked like he had the angle, and Mays just obliterated it. So we'll see. Update on the injured rookie linebacker. If you mean Vince Beagle, we don't have an update other than McCarthy isn't worried about him long term, but it is going to be, I guess, several more days. Best free agent so far? Oh, that's a good question. I think Bennett's been the most active. There's no doubt about that. But I think Jahari Evans has looked excellent as an excellent addition at guard. And Kendricks has had a strong opening to camp. I'm trying to think. Jean-Francois, like I was saying earlier in the video, he had a good day today. So they've all looked good, but I think Bennett's probably been the most noticeable, and that's to be expected. Rodgers already, you can see, wants to get him the ball, loves throwing to him. Now, some of that is probably just getting to know the guy, getting to know his tendencies on the field and working with him and trying to work that stuff out. But he's a big target. It's impossible to miss him when you see him on the field. he does a great job kind of making himself available to the quarterback, and Rodgers finds him easily. Let's see. Donnie, on the Adams foot injury, long-term concern, they're saying not for the year, not as, it's not injury, it's not a career threatening or anything like that, but McCarthy did say, it was going to be a few weeks, which, you wonder, by the time he's back, they're going to be kind of almost, ready to start game planning for, preseason games, and then week one, and missing all that time is really going to set him back, and you wonder, are they going to try and even bother with kind of bringing him back this year, or maybe they put him on the PUP, or who knows? It depends on the severity, and right now we don't know much. Kevin, you got that right. Who's making bread fielding punts right now? Randall Cobb. 4 days into camp. Although I will say Colby Pearson did a nice job today. Pearson was back there. He's a wide receiver they picked up this offseason when they cut Jacob Shum. And he's done some nice stuff from scrimmage, and he did nice work as a punt returner today. And if he can, bring something to that position, he's got a shot. How's the new punter been doing? A lot of punter questions. John Vogel's been excellent. The new punter has been great. Let's see. Standout play of the day? Good question. I'd say Trevor Davis on an end around. He just made the defense look foolish with his speed. They clearly were not ready for it, and he took it and just was gone up the right sideline. 3 tight ends this year? Yeah, Alex, I think that sounds about right. Richard Rodgers had another good day of practice today, by the way. Who do you think will be the backup to Ty? Man, I don't know. A long way to go there. Gosh, right now it's so close. It's really, really kind of impossible to say. They've all brought certain things to the table so far. They're all doing very well with what they're being asked to do in pass protection, which is the key to getting that playing time. I mean, right now, just on draft status alone, I guess I'll go with Jamal Williams, but it's really anybody's position right now. How's Richard Rodgers blocking? It's Richard Rodgers blocking. That's about all I can say. How's Ripkowski and his backup? They're solid. Carriage, I think, kind of outdid him that first day in pads. They were doing the blitz pickup drill, and he was just mauling guys. I mean, it was ridiculous. But Rip was still there. Rip was doing well. It was just Carriage kind of like made you turn your head. What is my biggest concern thus far? That I'm not going to see my kids for another 3 weeks. That's my biggest concern. I tell you guys all the time, I know you don't believe me, but I don't worry about anything when it comes to the Packers. The Packers are going to do what they do, and I'm going to live my life. Do you think after Rip's contract is up, we stop using a true fullback and going with an extra tight end? No, not as long as Mike McCarthy's in the building. He loves the fullback position. He went on kind of a bit of a soliloquy about it the other day when we were asking about Ripkowski. Now, I don't think the fullback will ever disappear while McCarthy's the head coach. Going to even play a base defense? Who is linebacker, nickel, and dime? Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think there will be much base. Again, as I said earlier, it's going to really depend on matchups, who they're playing, what kind of offense. But right now, it's a lot of Morgan Burnett and Joe Thomas in the nickel, and in dime, they're dropping down Josh Jones, mixing in Jones and Burnett, and then that's been Thomas as well. So they've obviously been rotating in Martinez and Ryan. They don't play a ton of base though. Ryan did have a great pass breakup today though. I will say that. But Martinez and kind of to a lesser extent Jake Ryan, they've been seen on the sideline a little bit more than they were last summer. There's no doubt about that. How big of an impact do you think Josh Jones and Kevin King will have on our defense? Sherwin, the early returns are that they will have let's not say significant, let's say a noticeable difference. Again, it's very, very early, but the signs, the arrow's pointing up, let's say that. Guyon making the team? Man, who knows? I doubt it. They could drop a suspension on the guy at any point. could tack it on to the 4 games he already has. So I wouldn't hold your breath on Guyon. Who has the green dot mic on defense then? Funnily enough, Josh, it's still Martinez. And as far as like how they work it when the other guys are in there and Martinez is out, that's something they've been a little bit cagey on. But I plan on asking Capers about it later this week. What position do you think they will try to... Oh, sorry, they go too fast. Do they ever race to see whom is the fastest on the team? They have in the past, but I haven't seen it this year. They haven't done it this year yet. You have a better idea who the starting cornerbacks are going to be? Eric, if I had to guess right now, given what we've seen of the last week or so, I would say your starters on opening day will probably be Devon House and Kevin King. But there's a lot of ball game left in that regard. Who's starting at nose tackle? Kenny Clark. Rollins the leader for slot corner. Good question, Joey. Man, that's a battle that's going to go right down to the wire. But I think right now, maybe. But I wouldn't count Randall out yet. What number did Ty pick? He's 88, Braden. He's 88. Sticking with 88. All right. I'm going to wrap it up, but thank you all for joining me. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your question. They do fly by kind of fast. I'll be back tomorrow after practice. You can ask me more questions then. Make sure you're checking out all of our coverage at PackersNews.com. We've got tons of great stuff up already. More to come throughout the afternoon and the evening. We're here each and every day for Packers training camp, so make sure you check it all out at PackersNews.com. Thanks a lot, guys.